Q. In what ways has the Holy Quran had an impact on your life? A. One night I was feeling particularly exhausted and sleepless. My mother came into my room and said she was about to go to the Larchmont Public Library and asked me if there were any books I wanted. I asked her to look and see if the library had a copy of an English translation of the Holy Quran. Imagine, years of passionate interest in the Arabs, reading every book I could get my hands on in the library about them, but until now I had never thought to see what was in the Holy Quran. My mother came back with a copy for me. I was so anxious that I literally grabbed it out of her hands and read it all night. There I also found all the family stories from the Bible from my childhood. In my 8 years of elementary school, 4 years of secondary school and 1 year at university, I had learned about English grammar and composition, French, Spanish, Latin and Greek in current usage, arithmetic, geometry, algebra, European and American history, elementary science, biology, music and art, but I had never learned anything about God. You can imagine that I was so ignorant of God that I wrote to my pen pal, a Pakistani lawyer, and confessed to him that the reason I was an atheist was because I couldn't believe that God was really an old man with a long white beard who sat on his throne in paradise. When he asked me where I had learned this outrageous thing, I told him about the reproductions in the Sistine Chapel that I had seen in Life magazine of Michelangelo's Creation and Original Sin. I described all the representations of God as an old man with a long white beard and the numerous crucifixes of Christ that I had seen with Paula at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But in the Holy Quran I read, God. There is no God but He, the living, the subsistent, who never reaches inactivity or sleep. From Him is all that is in the heavens and the earth. Who can intercede with Him without His consent? He knows both the past and the future, and they know nothing of His knowledge except what He permits. His throne encompasses the heavens and the earth, the preservation of which does not abate Him, for He is the Ingente, the Most High. Quran 2-255. As for those who disbelieve, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty will believe it to be water, and when he approaches it, he will find nothing. But he will see Allah before him, and he will call him to account. Surely Allah is expedient in reckoning. Or, he will be, as in the darkness of a deep ocean, covered with waves, covered with dark clouds, overlapping one another. When he stretches out his hand, he can hardly see it. For whoever God does not give light to will never have it. Quran 24:39-40. My first thought when I read the Holy Quran: this is the only true religion, absolutely sincere, honest, allowing no cheap compromises or hypocrisy. In 1959 I spent much of my free time reading books on Islam at the New York Public Library. It was there that I discovered 4 volumes of an English translation of Mishkat ul-Masabi. It was then that I learned that a proper and detailed understanding of the Holy Quran is not possible without some knowledge of the relevant hadiths. How can the sacred text be correctly interpreted except by the Prophet to whom it was revealed? As soon as I studied the Mishkat, I began to accept the Holy Quran as divine revelation. What convinced me that the Quran should come from God and not composed by Muhammad, may God's mercy and blessings be upon him, were its satisfying and convincing answers to all of life's most important questions, which I couldn't find anywhere else. As a child, I was so afraid of death, particularly of thinking about my own death, that after nightmares about it I would sometimes wake my parents crying in the middle of the night. When I asked them why I had to die and what would happen to me after death, all they could say was that I had to accept the inevitable, but that there was still a long way to go, and as medical science was constantly improving, maybe I would live to be 100. My parents, family and all our friends rejected any thought of eternal life as superstition and saw Judgment Day, reward in paradise and punishment in hell as outdated concepts. In vain did I search every chapter of the Old Testament for any clear and unambiguous concept of eternal life. All the prophets, patriarchs and sages of the Bible received their rewards or punishments in this world. The story of Job is typical. Hazrat Ayyub. God destroyed all his loved ones, his possessions and afflicted him with an abominable disease to test his faith. Job lamented wistfully to God about why he made a virtuous man suffer. At the end of the story, God restores all his earthly possessions, but nothing is said about any possible consequences in the